Today's video is going to give you all the information you need to know about what to plant and what to do to help your July garden in the low desert be successful. The summer solstice has passed, and believe it or not, the days are getting shorter. We're also going to talk about monsoon gardening. What's monsoon gardening? After the hot, dry days of June, July often brings added humidity and hopefully rain to the desert. Monsoon planting is all about taking advantage of that added humidity and hopefully extra rain to get one last planting of several summer crops in. It's just that simple. As July begins and we're waiting for the added moisture of the monsoons, there are still things you can plant. Plant pepper plants, shallots, and seeds of cantaloupe, winter squash, pumpkin, Armenian cucumbers, snake beans, and black-eyed peas all month long. If you want a pumpkin for Halloween, now's the time to plant it. Pay attention to the weather, and once the monsoon humidity comes, it opens up a few more options for us. With that extra moisture in the air, it's a great time to plant transplants of tomatoes, tomatillos, and eggplant. Plant seeds of amaranth, cucumber, basil, okra, corn, and all the beans. This is a great month for beans. Tepary beans, pinto beans, lima beans, pole beans, and even bush beans can be planted towards the end of the month. Although the days are really hot, it's still important to spend some time in your garden. Get out there each morning and see what's going on with your garden. Take time to notice the little things in your garden before they become big things. It's a lot easier to deal with pests and diseases when they're small rather than when they've overtaken your whole garden. Be sure to spend some time in your garden each day. Although it's hot, there are several things that still need to be done in the garden this month. If you're growing heat-loving crops, make sure you're getting out there and harvesting. Harvest that okra, harvest the Malabar spinach, harvest those snake beans. Leaving fruits on the plant signals to the plant that its job is done. And because they love the heat, they often grow and produce really fast, so sometimes it's hard to stay on top of that. But get out there and make sure you're harvesting those heat-loving crops as often as you can. The heat isn't for everybody, and a lot of those spring-planted vegetables are struggling and not doing well. For example, this tomato is really struggling, not looking so good. So I will probably harvest the tomatoes and then put the plant out of its misery. If you have an asparagus bed, July is a great month to get that fertilized. Apply a high nitrogen fertilizer to your asparagus bed. Be sure to water it in well. One other crop that can use fertilizing this month is your sweet potato bed. I like to fertilize my sweet potatoes one time during the growing season, and July is it. A liquid fertilizer containing higher amounts of phosphate and potassium. This will promote root growth, which is what we want for sweet potatoes. Other than the asparagus and sweet potato beds, it's best to wait and hold off on fertilizing any other plants. As you're seeing plants reach the end of their life cycle, remove plants and prepare the beds for additional monsoon and fall planting. I like to do this by cutting off the plants at their base, and then I add compost and other organic material to the soil. I also add a balanced organic fertilizer. Don't worry about those empty spots in your garden. Adding organic matter to those beds will help replenish the soil and the nutrients they've lost during the previous growing season. Take a look at your containers. If some aren't looking that good and you end up pulling the plants, be sure to do the same thing. Fill them back up with compost, maybe add a little of that organic fertilizer to them, and get them ready for things that you may plant this month or later in the year. Speaking of compost, it's really easy to let your compost bins dry out over the summer. It's so hot. But if you want to have that nice, fresh compost to add to your beds for fall planting, it's a great time to pay some attention to your compost. It's as simple as rotating them between the bins, being sure to wet them down well. As you do that, the compost is going to heat back up and begin breaking down more. Pay attention to that temperature, and when that temperature goes back down, that tells you it's time to do the process again. Move that compost from bin to bin, wetting it down. Do that a couple of times over the summer and you'll have plenty of compost come fall. Keep your flowers deadheaded to encourage more blooms. There are still some flowers you can plant this month. As fruit ripens on your fruit trees, be sure to keep it picked and up off the ground. Pay attention to your trees. Keep an eye out for leaf-footed bugs. If you see them, hunt them down. July isn't a good month to prune. Hold off on pruning fruit trees, landscape plants, and other trees around your yard this month. Your basil should be looking great. Be sure and keep it harvested. If you notice that it's starting to flower, cut it back. Basil goes to flower really quick, but we can keep it from doing that by keeping it trimmed back. Harvest basil often. You can also harvest sage, lemongrass, oregano, and mint this month. Hold off on planting any other herbs besides basil. They'll do much better if you wait till later in the fall to plant them. If you're looking to get a head start on your fall planting, the end of the month is a good time to start seeds indoors for things like broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. As we're kind of in the thick of summer, go around your yard and take a look at how things are doing. Take note of which plants in your yard are doing well, which plants may need to be replaced or relocated to a different area in your yard. Maybe those plants need a little more afternoon shade to do well. Contain the urge to plant landscape plants in your yard this month. It's still very hot and it's difficult for plants to do well. Hold off just a month or two and it will be much easier for those plants to adapt and do well in your yard. Keep an eye on your plants. You may need to add additional mulch to your plants this month. If we don't get a nice deep soaking this month, consider running your drips an extra time to give your plants at least one good deep soaking to kind of leach those salts that build up from the frequent watering a little bit lower in the ground. July is a great month to spend some time planning your fall garden. Decide which vegetables that you'd like to plant. Make plans now and order seeds. Look into ordering garlic. Would you like a beautiful wildflower garden next year? Now's the time to order those seeds and make your plan. If we get a lot of dust storms this month, be sure to spray your plants down about once a week, and this will help control the spider mites and keep your plants much happier. Now you know what I'm going to be doing and planting in my garden in July. Hope you found a few tips that are helpful. Thank you so much for watching.